I may not get anybody come in. I think everybody's over on Cindy's channel. Who knows? I'm a little bit late because I was watching Cindy's live. She's on a flow. But I was worried about letting people down and not being on time. And I'm 15 minutes late as it is. Hey, I can't see who's in here. If you want to say hi. I'm a bit late. I was watching Cindy's live. The girl's going off on one. She's got the vibe. She's caught the vibe. So I had to just say goodbye and dip out. Oh, hiya, Ola. Mwah. I know most people who are connected to me connected to Cindy, so I wasn't expecting realistically anybody to be in here. But thank you. This is very different. Natural. Or real. Bringing the tea and the comfies. And we're going to talk about some healing and attachment and detachment, and how it worked for me, where I found the way out. Hiya, Paulette. Hello, my darling. Oh, thank you, JT. I didn't want to leave her reading, but she was so like in her flow, and you can't knock that when the spirit's got you and it's taking you. You have to just let it and roll with it. So I popped out and said, hopefully you'll catch me on the other side. Hopefully shortly, when she's finished doing what she's doing, she'll come over. But this is very different to what I normally do. This is kind of a more relaxed version of speaking my truth and how I got to where I am, and the understanding I have. I don't do things the way everybody else does, and that's good because it means different people connect in different ways. And I just wanted to kind of inspire people that there is light after the broken love. And how you detach from that person. So many people at this moment are walking away from their belief systems of who their person was. Walking away from whether it's the twin flame, whether it's a person, whether it's just the whole bullshit of being dragged down, labelled. Oh, thank you, Paulette. Oh, thank you, darling. I don't know what this box is. I don't use this forum. I haven't got 1,000 subscribers yet, so I can't go live. As soon as I do, then it'll be easy to use YouTube's platform. But for now, this is the only way I can do it. I can't get StreamYards like Cindy does when they have all those flashy things. I'm really not technical. This isn't my forte. My forte is just speaking. That's what I do. And I'm very real from my perspective. So everything in here is me opening up my vulnerable side. This is me showing you my dark side and how I got through. And hopefully it resonated in the last one. Yeah, it was more passionate than this is going to be. This is healing is about gentle healing, and this is about that gentle healing, that vulnerability of me opening up. I have got some cards with me. And the deck that I was given by a beautiful couple that own a spiritual shop down in Ironbridge. They put me onto this deck, the Tarot of Light and Shadow. I've used it for free readings, those when I do the healing and I want the shadow side. So we're gonna that's where we go, and we're going on the shadow side, we're going on the dark side, hence the reason why it's so calm, why it's so informal, not at the desk, not with all the glam. It's just very homely, as if you was in my home and we was just sat here talking, chatting, understanding things. Any questions anybody wants to ask. Hiya, Clark. Sending warm loves from Canada. Mwah. Sending them all the way back from England. So yeah, Cindy, like she said, her testimonial towards me was when she saved me. Well, there's a big backstory to that and how we've got to where we are today. And this journey, for me, started at birth. As for most people, not everybody was born into a family that didn't have past traumas passed on from the generation above and the generation above. And every generation, as it comes down, those burdens and those issues are dropped down with it. You know, it kind of filters down till you get to the point where one generation is carrying so many burdens, they have to break free. They have to get out of those cycles that there was inflicted on, whether that's generational cycles, which is what it usually is. Those are imposed on us along with what the government says, what the school says, what perception is of authority. So, okay, down to how this started for me. You know my story. I found my spiritual awakening after trying to commit suicide. I'd lost almost everything other than the children. That's all I was left with. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today, as well as for Cindy. The pain of life was given to me by people who hadn't been learnt, and their pain had been passed down from the generation above. And that's the way generational curses work. Those generational curses, those cycles repeat over and over and over again. And why is it so hard for us to let go of something that we want so hard? Attachment issues, codependency, not believing who we are or even knowing who we are, because when every time that we're told who we have to be, or we learn from vibrations of people that we can't be who we want to be, and we have to be what they perceive us to be, or we want their love, we want affection, we want acceptance of people. As children, born into families where their parents were living the same cycles as their parents, in my generation it was children are seen and not heard. This comes with a lot of toxic traits, i.e. Your opinion isn't valued. So what do? You see how they value you when they do value you. Hiya Rosie, sending more hugs from British Columbia, Canada. Hiya beautiful, thank you for coming over. And those change who you are. They kind of create an avatar. They put a piece on here because you understand that if you was to speak your truth, you get shut down. That blocks you. So then you realise, okay, I'm not worthy of my opinion. That's a shadow that you hold because they was probably taught that their opinion didn't matter, or it wasn't worthy because they're a child. This escalates and snowballs till you get to the point in adulthood where you don't speak your truth because your value of who you are was knocked down from such a child that from a child that you don't even know who you are. You've become what everybody else is around you has made you. So I have taken some notes because this was all channeled from yesterday. It just kind of come through. This is where inner child healing takes effect. And without inner child healing, you can never heal the issues of today, because these issues aren't necessarily just yours. Like I said, they're your parents. So people go through emotional and physical trauma. This plays out in so many different ways. You kind of work from a place of, I want to protect myself. So when you do something, hiya Kyle, when you do something which doesn't agree with somebody else's conditions, you're shut down. For instance, there was, before we go any further, and I'm going to go into the story, this is very personal. It's to do with parenting, and I now hold absolutely no blame to my mum. I accept how she was at that time. She's a different person now. Me healing and seeing the light in a different way has transpired. We've had very open conversations, been lots of tears, and she now understands that the pain that she was carrying, that she pushed onto me, was pain that she carried and was pushed on by her mum. So by me opening up and being very honest and going to her, hi, we have been able to build bridges and connections that was never ever in the family history, in the line beforehand. So it come to the point where my mum had met my stepfather, and we were just getting to know each other, and the incident happened where we was just play fighting and I got hurt. So I spoke my truth and I said, I was only young, you hurt me. And in my eyes, that was a trauma. That was an emotional trauma that I carried from the previous, it is generational, from the previous people that had been around me that my mum had connected to. And my response was, you hurt me. You're just like all the other men. My mum's natural reaction was, you've pushed him away. He's probably not going to come back. Why is he going to want me? And then I had such guilt and I carried that pain that I walked my little self, I think I must have been about 10, 11, to this guy's house and apologised. I apologised for having feelings. I apologised for speaking my truth, because my truth had hurt somebody else, and I didn't have the confidence, because of the generation I was born into, to uphold those and value who I was to the extreme that I had the ability to stand up for who I was. Those little things knock you as a person. So when you get into toxic relationships when you're older, when something goes wrong and then a situation arises, you don't trust your instinct. You don't know your voice. You don't have your voice, because your voice has been shadowed and echoed by a generation that has pushed their pain upon you. So to detach from, this is a trauma bond, so it's a trauma bond that's created. You feel as though you need their acceptance, but to gain their acceptance, you can't be you. You have to be the person who you was created by everybody else's trauma. I'm glad you bought your coffee. I've got a big ass cup of tea. And these sit within you the same way as I got beat up once when I was at school. Thank you, Shirley. Exactly. But you see, when you're in generations of years ago, I mean, I'm nearly 50 now. So I was born in an era where children didn't have values. They didn't have the right to say anything, because we was born in a generation where children should be seen and not heard. So when it gets to the point of you being an adult, you're stuck in that trauma bond from being that 10-year-old child who doesn't know how to speak that truth. So when exactly, you're seen and not heard. So your voice is never being heard, to the point you don't even know what your voice is on any level. So when you have this guy standing in front of you and your belief system is you shut up and you put up. A wife's place is, or a girl's place, is never to speak out against anything that's done against her. This is very toxic, for the reason being, when a female, young girl, young adolescent believes, even though you hurt her, as long as it makes you feel okay, it's fine. And you shouldn't fight against what somebody else believes in you. So, this is deep. I needed an operation. Another time of not being validated. I was told that I was having a ruptured gallbladder, and we was meant to be at the hospital at 7 o'clock in the morning, and my mum was raised where the house had to be immaculate. You cleaned your front step. Your children always looked immaculate, because you worried, it is deep, what neighbours think. You worried about what Jack Jones think. Keeping up with the Joneses is where that phrase come from. So I'm about to walk out the door, and my mum's got herself presentable. We're all presentable, going to the hospital. And I remember the look on her face. She said, "Don't shame me. If we go there and there's nothing wrong with you, I'm going to be really, really upset." I got to the hospital and we got there. They threw me on a bed and took me straight into theatre. They said if I'd waited any longer, my gallbladder would have ruptured. I was 12 years old. That also doesn't validate the fact that I felt pain. And I was scared of showing my pain and my vulnerability for upsetting somebody else. But then it made me question, is my pain real? Is my pain enough for you to accept who I am? So my emotions got broke down. They got locked down. They were never validated. This is another trauma response. I always said my knees would always hurt, and I got to the point I lived daily in pain. But because I didn't have that validation to speak, that pain got unnoticed because I wouldn't speak on it. I got to 18 and got diagnosed with a condition called hypermobility Ehlers-Danlos. That affects almost every organ within your body. That for me meant I'd had locked knees from a young age. I'm now 40 odd years old, been diagnosed for over 20 odd years, and only now able to speak the truth about who I am, and the doctors understand the condition I have to such a degree. They've said it's gone too far. My fingers generally lock up. I have to walk with a stick most of the time now, especially when I have what I call relapses. But I was always scared to show that vulnerable side, that disabled side, because I didn't feel validated. It's exactly the same in love. When you get to the point where you have to heal, you have to accept everything about yourself. And I didn't feel worthy. Why? Because I'd never been given that. I had never validated who I was. I didn't understand the trauma that had created around me. So I didn't know how to express that. So when you meet somebody who's vivacious, they're strong. Hi Cindy, I love you, sweetheart, too. When I got to the point where I'd met the guys in my life, I didn't know how to stand up for myself. My first relationship, I was 18, 19. I was with this guy. My intuition was telling me that this guy was cheating. The one day he came back and he had a t-shirt on. He got into bed. And I knew that he hadn't... Why have you not taken t-shirt off? And I got shut down, told to shut up. Okay. But my intuition was kicking and I couldn't let it go. So I kind of made him take the t-shirt off, and he'd got marks on him, which meant he'd been with another woman. In that moment, he then validated what I'd already been told in previous years, that my pain wasn't validated and I shouldn't question a man because a man's the hierarchy. I am littler. My opinion isn't valid. My pain isn't valid, and I shouldn't question you. Who do you think you are to question me? I'm big, you're small, that kind of thing. To the point where I told him to leave. At that moment, he went into the hallway. Unbeknownst to me, there was a gun in the closet. We don't have guns in England. There is no gun law. We're not allowed to have guns. There is guns, but we're not allowed. And he couldn't find the bullets. Well, I knew these bullets was in the house, but I didn't know the gun was in the house, and I'd hidden the bullets because it was not something that I wanted to agree with. But because he's a man, I enabled that behaviour by hiding them. But I also hid them from him because I had a fear, and I don't know why I had this fear. But he said, every time I ask for a bullet, if you don't give it me, every time I ask for them, if you don't give it me, I'm going to shoot you. He asked 3 times. Third time, I kind of shit my pants. So I gave him the bullets. He cocked the gun. It was a sawn-off shotgun. And he put the bullets in, 2. He'd asked 3 times. He cocked and he shot. The gun missed me, ricocheted off the radiator and went into the wall. First shot. The second one went behind me and hit the window. The third one skimmed past my eye, and I still have a scar. And all I seen was the blood drip down. And in that moment, I went fight or flight. Trauma, PTSD kind of started from there. And I knew it was me or it was him. So I stood up while he was cocking the gun to put the other bullet in. I knew this was my chance. I was backed in a corner. I was wild. I knew this is how I had to get out. So I jumped up on the bed in front of him. I took the gun because it was cocked down, and as he was cocking it down, I grabbed the front, I've picked it up, I've swung it, and I've smashed the gun on him. He was that shocked because I was this meek, mild. For 18 months I didn't backchat, I didn't say anything. He went to work, he got drunk on his wages, I paid all the bills because I was conditioned not to say anything. That was a very toxic situation that led to that. He ran out the door. Me in my big bolshy ways opened the window and started screaming, "You forgot your gun." Pain and trauma does two things. It makes you go very inwards, or it makes you become very confrontational. That day in, I swore I would never be in that situation again, which meant I put a defense barrier up, and I became almost ignorant to anybody else's emotions and feelings, the same way those adults had validated how my feelings were of non-worth. And that kind of put me on a road, because I was a very soft-hearted, loving, inside person. But then my persona that I had to carry to protect myself was hard-faced, mouthy, confrontational, almost putting on a face of, I'm going to eat you before you can even come to me. So you stayed away from me. I pushed people away with my defense mechanism because that was my trauma to save me. That was my safe word. That was my safe place. So every time a situation would come to me that I felt intimidated by, hurt by, I reacted in that same defense mode: attack and run. Attack them so they feared me, till they stand back, and then run. This happened over and over, and anytime something went wrong, my ex-husband, I was with him, we got married on our wedding day. The best man come up to me, and he was already an hour late for the wedding, and he came up to me and he said, "I've drug spiked your husband with ease, ecstasy." I'm having my photos taken. I've got my mum one side and I've got my stepfather the other. And the day that's supposed to be the most beautiful day of your life was completely and utterly shattered. Another day, I didn't know what the hell I was supposed to do. Like, what do you do in that situation? From that day, I knew my marriage was doomed. But back then, you make the commitment and you stay. Why? Because women put up and shut up. Another time, I was not validated because I didn't have self-worth. Fast forward 8 years. By this time, we'd had children. I was pregnant and I had the intuition, the way that intuition kicked in when I knew the first fella was cheating. Something in me snapped. But because I didn't want to be a troublemaker, and I didn't have a voice and I didn't know how to speak it, I kind of went within, to the point where my brain frazzled and fried and I had a stroke. I was also pregnant. Strokes in pregnancy and stress are a very common denominator when it's connected. I was bedridden for the whole of the pregnancy. I don't remember anything from when I got pregnant in the September to the Christmas. My children had to go and stay with their parents, his parents, and they stayed with like grandparents. And I remember waking up thinking, what's going on here? The next thing I know, I'd given birth. All the medication had weared away, and because I'd had the pressure relieved from having the baby, it's almost like I woke up. My child's 5 days old. I couldn't walk very well, so my ex-husband carried me up the stairs and put me in the bath because I wanted a bath. All I wanted was a bath. I'd been bed bathed by nurses the whole pregnancy because my bed was in the lounge. I had a hoist to help me on. I had a commode in my lounge. When I say I had no pride or dignity, my dignity was taken away from me, and I didn't have a voice to ask for help. I didn't know how to ask for help because nobody had ever been there to help me. So I went upstairs, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden the baby started crying, his 5-day-old baby. So I've said to my husband, go downstairs and tend to the baby and I will wait. I was used to waiting, I was used to being second, I was always second. That was normal in my life. At that moment, I seen the phone flashing in the bedroom that I hadn't stepped foot in for almost 9 months since I'd had this stroke. So I walked over with the Zimmer frame. I picked up the phone and there was a message. This is where things get interesting, because it said it was from his boss. Now, bearing in mind for the whole time that I've been pregnant, I'm laying on a bed in the lounge. I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. We had 2 two-seaters. So I could be a mother and he could still go to work. Yes, he went to work every day because he had to earn money. And me, not asking, not knowing my worth, I never thought for 1 second I needed him at home. My child would sleep on that chair and my child would sleep on that chair. Do you know, at 2 years old, my daughter knew how to help me onto a commode by pressing the button to be able to help me out my hoist. So there's me upstairs. The message come through. I thought it's his boss. I better answer it because he's always on about work. He works 6-7 days a week to make sure that he can make this money because I'm such a burden on him and he's got to be the man and, you know, he's got to do these things. So I have to just kind of put up and shut up again. Validating again the once trauma that was embedded in me. And I said the message, I can't have sex tonight, darling, I'm on my period. My son was downstairs with my husband. I couldn't walk. That fight or flight mode came in again. The rage. I stood at the top of the stairs and knew I couldn't physically carry myself down the stairs. So I threw myself down the stairs and I landed in a heap at the bottom, and he's just come to the bottom of the stairs looking at me like, and he's got this newborn baby in his hands. What are you doing? I went, who the hell is she? And I showed him the phone, and in that moment he knew. I said, give me my son. He said, no. I said, give me my son. He said, no. Okay. So I opened my front door, took in a nightie, bearing in mind I'd given birth 5 days ago. I hadn't been bathed. I'd lay up in that bed for 5 days. Any woman that knows what a baby's like, you know what it's like in that moment. I got in my car and I drove to the phone box because we didn't have credit on the phone. So when he used to go to work, I was left in that house from the night to the morning because he worked nights with my 2 children, unable to move freely, unable to speak very clearly because I couldn't communicate. I hadn't learned how to speak properly yet since then. And I went to the phone box. I couldn't even stand up when I got to the phone box because I was hurting because I threw myself down the stairs. And it was one of those phone boxes where it didn't have a door. It was just like a booth. So I picked up the phone, I phoned this number. This girl pretended she didn't know who he was. That broke me completely. So I drove back home and I confronted him and I said, I was told that I would not get better and I would need continual help and I would be a burden on you. I'm going to walk one day. Do you know the day I walk, you're out. I am going to have you here to make sure my children have everything they need. And the day I walk, you're out. This was in the February. My son was born February the 5th, so this was the 10th of February, 2004. March, April that year, every day I was getting stronger. Every day I had that determination. I would not be beaten. I will not be beaten. And the one day he came in from work and I sat up on that bed. I pushed myself up with my frame. I put the frame to the side and I walked to him. But little did he know, because I knew I could do it that day, I went upstairs and I packed his shit. When he walked in, his stuff was at the side of the chair. there's your stuff. Get out. And he did, without a word. I empowered me. And he left. I started to live my life. I started to do all the things that I hadn't been able to do for the last almost 10, 12 months. And I grew inside, but it was a facade. I wasn't healing any issues because I didn't know what healing was. I just knew it was that fight or flight mode. You have to do this. And I did it for my 3 children, my newborn and my other 2. Okay, so a couple months down the line, well, about 4 or 5 months down the line, I was taking the children to see him the one day. And once again, my self-worth, even though everything he'd done, got crushed. Because when I went there, I heard them talking at where he was staying. I heard them talking about him, slagging him off. Me being somebody who wants to fix, help, heal, even though there was nobody there to ever fix, help, heal me, I said, I'm not having you stay here with them talking about you like that. Get your stuff, come back home. You're not together, but you shouldn't have to live like this. And my kids aren't going to be around toxic people talking about their dad like that. A year later, we ended up back together. Why? Because I didn't have any self-worth. Because I thought it was my job to help heal. Even though everything he'd done, I still took him back. It had come to the conclusion that he had a one-night stand with this girl, that was it. A year and a half later, I was pregnant again. Oh yes, in that trap, in that loop. I was having a conversation with his brother one New Year's Eve. His brother said, oh, the girl that he cheated with, I work with her. You work with her? But he works with you. Yeah, she works with us. She does the night shift. I said, that the girl he had the one night stand with? One night stand? They was together for nearly a year. In that moment, I knew I didn't love him. That everything had gone. And I looked at him, I said, I'm not kicking you out, but I don't love you no more. And you need to leave. It took him 4 months to walk out the door. When he left, he went all day. One day, doesn't go nowhere. He used to smoke weed. I worked. He stayed at home. Even though I was disabled, I worked. I did the school run. He stayed at home. But I'd have to pay him to stay at home and look after the children. Pay him with weed. I had to buy him weed, and the only way that he would stay and look after his own children, for me to earn the money to be able to support our house, was if I bought him weed. But I was conditioned. I didn't know how to stand up for myself. I didn't know what was right or wrong, because I'd been brought up into a generation where you just put up and you shut up. And that's what I did. So that day, my life changed again. So then I was then single for nearly 10 months when he left. But the day that he left, when he'd gone out for all day, he come back about 11 o'clock on the night time. My children was all in bed, and I'd had to explain to the children that Daddy's not going to come back, because I didn't know where he was. He hadn't got a phone back then. So I had to explain to the children in a way that they could understand. He came in and crushed everything in that moment, because in that moment he turned around and he said, I'm leaving because your mum doesn't love me. He was banging around in the loft. It took him 4.5 hours to get that and verbally abuse me in front of the children. The children were in pieces on the floor screaming, Daddy, don't leave. I hate you, Mummy. Why don't you love my daddy? He turned everything around on me. Because he said, you forgave me for the cheating, so that's not why we were splitting up. We're splitting up because you don't love me no more. And that's on you. My children grew up, and I held that in because I didn't want them to think bad of their father, because I'd had a mum that, we was never allowed to speak about my dad. She wasn't with my dad. He was toxic. He beat her. He was vile. He was a drug addict. This is the pain that I'd endured since a child. I'd had 3 or 4 baby dads around me, stepfathers, growing up. Each man came in with their own. We was never good enough until they had theirs. Their child got treated better than us. I never wanted that for my kids, which is why I kept a hold of a relationship that was dead, way dead. But my pain and trauma kept me in something. So he finally left. 10, 11 months down the line, the one day I turned around and I said, okay, I'm ready. I was aligned. I was ready. and healed enough to move forward. But I hadn't opened up any kind of inwards. I'd never let anybody get to me. As soon as I had made my choice, gone. So I was never healing anything or fixing anything, because you don't fix anything by running. And this was my fight or flight mode. From that first time of being hurt, my fight or flight mode was to run. Going back a little bit, because when I was 12 and I had the operation, I needed a bigger bedroom, but the bigger bedroom belonged to the boys. The boys was also, they weren't just my blood brothers, they were the stepfather's sons as well. While I was having to use a wheelchair, while I couldn't walk for myself, I was abused by his sons. I couldn't run. So my fight or flight mode from then on in, if I could run, I was running as fast as I could. Again, validating that I'm not good enough. Nobody listened to you. They didn't see the signs. They was too busy doing what they was doing. Hence the reason why the trauma built and it built and it built. So 10 months later, okay, so now I'm 31. The marriage is completely ended. I go out, I'm aligned. I said, okay, ladies. They kept trying to get me to meet people. I wasn't ready. And I said, ladies, I'm getting the black book out. The little black book is what we call it. And you go and get numbers and you go and do what you're doing. So this is where I went. I went out. That's the night that I met my divine masculine. That night, he came to me. He met me. We chilled. They all came back to mine. We had a few drinks at home. We lay down. We went to sleep. There was absolutely nothing happened. The next day, I dropped them off. And we started texting, started talking, started communicating. He made me feel like I could breathe. I didn't fear this man. He gave me something that I'd never had before. It was a connection that the first day it was magnetic. It was raw. It was real, and I'd run away from every connection in the past that hurt me until this man came along. The connection between us was so strong. I believed everything he said, like everything. He was 26. He had his own company. When he worked for a construction company doing plastering, he had his own home. I went to visit this home many a times. This is where it was. I seen it. I witnessed it. And then the one day he said, are you staying over tonight? I said, yeah, okay, I'll stay. My children used to go to their grandparents. So on those weekends, I would go and stay at his. He went, okay. He says, well, don't be too loud because my mum's coming home tonight. Pardon? Oh yeah, my mum works away in the week. She works away weekends, and when she needs somewhere to stay, when she comes back, this is where she stays. Okay. 6-7 months down the line, pregnant again. So I'm kind of like, we need to get things like, are we going to go formal? This is, you're living with me. We're going to live in the whole dream, living the life, living the dream. The one day I'm sitting on the bed and the phone rings. Are you on your own? I says, no, I'm with my partner. They said, I think you need to sit down and you need to leave the room. And I knew instantly my tummy turned, that sick feeling. I thought, here we go again. That feeling, the same feeling I had when I got shot, the same feeling I knew when I got cheated on. What have I missed here? Why is this coming to me now? She said, do you know how old he is? I went, yes, he's 27. 20 years. And I said, how old is he? I think he's about 17. I said, pardon? 17, 18, he's in my son's year. I says, are you joking? He says, no. That was the moment I should have walked away, but I was attached. And because he'd never beat me, because he'd never shot me, at that point I didn't know that he'd ever cheated on me. All he'd done was lied. Oh, it's only a little lie. In my eyes, that was better than how I'd been treated in the past. So I'm stuck now in a relationship with somebody who's lied to me. I found out later he wasn't working for a construction company. He was in a youth school, and they used to send you to these places to get hands-on experience. And he was a trainee bricklayer. Lies, manipulation. When I finally spoke to him, he said, I didn't think you'd want me, so I thought I'd make up a lie for you to want me. And now I've got you. And I could not walk away, no matter what he did. He cheated over the years. He robbed me. Sent me videos of him with other women. took money out of our bank account and went to hotels with women and did drugs. Then everything kind of calmed down. A week later, about a year later, I then fell pregnant. Again, the same damn cycle. 3 months in, he said, I don't think we should have any more children. I think it's time maybe you should get rid of the baby. I think we'd be really happy together if we didn't have any more burdens on us. I could never do that. I couldn't. I said, I can't. He said, it's me or the baby. You're going to have to go. Little did I know that he was sleeping with my cousin. My cousin. They would drive up and down past my house. They would plaster their relationship all over Facebook, and I was heartbroken. But you know, if I hadn't have been pregnant, I would have killed myself. That's the first time I wanted to, but I wouldn't touch anything because I was pregnant with my son, so he saved me. After he was born, I had postnatal depression. He promised he was going to come back. I gave him, when the baby's born, you've got till the baby's born to grow up. You've got till that point to grow up, and I will wait for you. Yeah, trauma bonding. I didn't know how to release. I didn't know how to walk away. All these years, I'd fight or flight, but it didn't hurt me physically. But my emotions weren't validated. Physically, yes. And the reason that physically I could walk away when somebody physically traumatized me was because one of my mum's partners attacked me the one day because I hadn't done the ironing, because he was a drunk and he used to make believe that he'd done all the ironing, the cleaning, all the rest of it. It was left to me. The one day I stood up for myself and he went to hit me, so I picked the ash up and I smashed it over his head. I think I was about 10, 11. My mum came home, she went to beat me, and I said, before you do, he picked his hand up to me. That's why I did it. And she turned. My mum beat his ass, kicked him out, made me throw all his records out the window, smash the fuckers, throw him at the car, do what you've got to do. In that moment, she validated my pain of being physically attacked. That's why when I was physically attacked, I could walk away. But you know, if you emotionally hurt me, I couldn't. Why? Because my emotions had never been validated. This is why when this connection came in, it had to come in one that was going to hurt me internally, not physically. My divine masculine never laid his hand on me, never picked a hand up to me, ever. But emotionally, in every which way, he ripped me down. Why? Why? Because I had to learn what my feelings were. I had to learn that hurting me internally was as bad as being hurt physically. It took me till I was in my 40s to finally get and understand what the hell had been going on all these years. So when you have this childhood, you don't realise how much being a child and these things have been told you're not validated pays so much attention, which is why inner child healing is such a massive thing. When you get to the point where your emotions are as valid, if not more valid, and equal validation to the pain of a physical beating, you know, bruises heal and you can get over that. But you know, internally being made to feel like you're nothing. So this guy was brought in to break me down, shine the light within me, to show me all the cracks that I didn't even know existed. And every single time that we came back of recent in the last 4 years since I've been doing this healing journey, he learnt me something about how much more I was validated, how much more I was worthy, which helped me heal. So yes, he broke me, but he had to illuminate and show me where these generational cycles had been pushed down on me to not understand. Exactly, I was ripped to the core, to the point where I am now where I am. And I understand nobody is worthy of emotional hurt. Nobody is will beat me. The final straw for the beating, I had another partner. I was only talking to him for 3 weeks. All of a sudden, he gets arrested. He begs me and pleads, please, 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 stay with me. I waited for that man for 9 months till he got out of jail. A week, I paid for everything. I bought his clothes. I was the perfect girlfriend. He came out of jail no, 3 weeks before he came out of jail, he says to me, I don't think I want this relationship. When I come out, I think I want to go and party and do drugs. I don't want a relationship. Okay. And I just walked away. When he came back 3 or 4 weeks after he got out of jail, when I come and see you, I said, okay then. So he'd come and see me. He'd found out that my friend had brought a male to my house, which happened to be his cousin. And he was infuriated to the point where he beat me. He crushed the side of my skull. My children was present. They watched him beat me. The first punch knocked me out. This man continually punched me and cracked this side of my skull until I woke up. It was the punch that woke me up. The reason I bear the mandala, which goes all the way through, over all of those scar tissues, was because that was me putting my stamp and taking my power back on the pain that he'd given me. Every tattoo I own, this is the lion. This for me represents the voice, the truth, the power in me. I am a lion and I will protect me and I will use my voice chakra opened here. I have tattoos all over my body. They was all put in place to help me heal. So when people judge me, look at her with the tattoos. Look at this, look at that. You may judge people who are full of tattoos, but you know the ones who are plastered in tattoos. Do you understand the amount of pain they had to keep going? They had to inflict, I had to inflict pain on me, for me, to me, because that's the only way I felt validated, because all my life I had been hurt. So I now wear my tattoos with pride, because this to me is my power. This was me taking my power back, putting on my armour of my truth, and not giving a flying fuck what anybody's got to say, to the point where I put it on my face. The first thing you will see about me is my tattoos. Your judgment will only hinder you, because if you got to know me, you would understand I'm the kind of person who I will back you up 90% of the way. In fact, 100% of the way, even when I shouldn't. Why? Because I never had nobody to back my corner. That was all part of my healing. That man had to come in to illuminate me to heal. So when I say to you, the twin flame journey, this masculine's brought, Scotty. Okay. This masculine is brought in to illuminate, is a catalyst for you to heal the wounds that you didn't even know was there, to the point where you are that high in your divinity. If they can't vibrationally match you, you will never settle for anything less, because you have walked through valleys, you have walked through shadows people would never even understand. So if you think for one goddamn second I would allow anybody to break me, I am unbreakable. The Lord saved me. I'm getting shivers. I was set on a path of complete and utter destruction, because even when you have that power of belief, or when somebody, the universe, God, whatever the creator is that you believe in, believes in you more than you, nothing can take you down and you become unstoppable. So when I preach with the passion on that video the other day, when I talk about healing and I tell you I'm a soul healer, I can't read cards like Cindy. They fly out her mouth. She knows. The same with Enchanted Cottage. I watch these readers. I can't speak to you in that language, but I can speak to you in mine. Mine is vulnerable. It's real. It's open. And I connect to the cards for pain. on how to heal you. So when I pick my cards up and I say, okay, this is about you to heal, and when you heal, this opens up this connection. This is how I understand the vibration of what those cards are trying to tell me, because I've lived the darkest of dark, and I did it on my own. I walked through all of my life. I stopped talking to my mum for almost 10 years. I didn't know why. I just knew it wasn't right. And I did a lot of all this pain that I've just spoke about without my mum being present, because her emotions was never validated. She was the black sheep. You learn how to be a parent from your parents. She didn't have that ability and understanding the way I didn't. I was a toxic mum. In the time when I was hurting, I was emotionally detached from my children. They had their clothes. This was the way. They got the clothes, got a roof over their head, they got food in the tummy. You're a damn good mum. That's the bare minimum. Children deserve way more than that. But how would I know that? Because I didn't even have that much. My feelings was never validated. This is why I had to understand the journey. And at the moment when it hit hard for me was when my daughter ran away at 16. She ran away from a toxic mum who was emotionally unavailable. How could I be emotionally available when I didn't know what emotions were? So this whole healing journey then caught on. And when we got back in contact, me and my daughter, we was estranged for about 2 years. She came back thinking I was the same person that left. I wasn't. And nothing she could do would ever change the amount of love I had for her, the pain that come out of her mouth, the abuse I had to take. That was my karma. And I was going to sit through it. And I wasn't going to judge. I wasn't going to shut her down the way I'd been shut down. I was going to listen. I was going to accept that her pain was her pain. And I was going to do everything I could to validate all the emotions that I denied in her, because I didn't know how to accept them, because they'd been denied in me. When I knew I had to try and work this, I had to step it up a gear, was my daughter started to walk down the path that I had. And I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but she's very much in her truth. She understands. She didn't know how to stand up for herself. And she was exactly the same little girl as me. And she went somewhere trusting the people that was around her. And she was locked in her home and she was raped. My daughter had to live my pain, because I didn't learn quick enough. That pain pushes me to help somebody else heal, because I'm not so much saving you. The children that need to be saved need us to do the work that our parents didn't have the strength, the knowledge, or the ability to do. This is bigger than a reading. This is bigger than the cards. This is the world coming together and understanding that how we was taught was wrong. It was right at the time because nobody knew no better. But we know better. Awakened people know. And you have to use that awakened consciousness to help others heal. And if by me opening up, telling you all of my darkest, there's so many more stories I could tell. Those are the poignant ones that changed, and for me to connect to why I accepted what I accepted in life. She went through anxiety. She tried to commit suicide. She's walked a very lonely path where she pushes people away. I do the same. Why would she do that? Because she learnt from me. My daughter has accepted spirituality. She's accepted where I came from. She's accepted she's here for the same good as what I'm here for. And she has become the light that I gave her in the healing and the acceptance and validating her. All of her emotions were correct. All of her feelings was validated. and it's took a long time for us to get there. She's now a beacon of light for people of her generation, and she has people coming to her. She's knowledgeable about the stars and astrology and the North Node and the South Node. That girl is on. I couldn't tell you half. I know bits. That's where she's a gift. And she completely has healed sections of people around her. Over and over and over again. When people are brought to you, they are the moth to the flame. They want that light. And she's learnt discernment on who deserves it, who to cut off. She has learnt the lessons it took me till this day to learn. She knows her value. She knows her strength. To me, that is, for me, the biggest achievement. Because I have healed and fixed an issue when I was the problem. So by fixing myself with this connection, I have healed her trauma that I gave her. And in the process, my mum's understood the connection between her and her mum. And although my nan isn't of age now, she's in her 90s, she's knocking on the heavens doors as we speak. Those conversations will never be had. So there's a certain part of my mum that will never be healed. But has she healed to be the woman that I aspire to be? Which is something I never thought I'd say. Because acceptance, understanding is a massive part of healing. And the second you can forgive yourself, release the guilt, you allow forgiveness in for those who hurt you. Hurt people. But heal people, see healing people. This is why this connection is so strong in the twin flame, because it is all about healing. And somewhere along the line, it was made about a person, somebody else, the other person to validate you, which is the same misogynistic, generational crap that your parents put into you in the very beginning, the very thing we've been running away from. This is a time of grand rising. The whole world is seeing it right now. And this is the same with, okay, so we've just come out of a big section of the last 300 years that was ruled by Taurus. This is something I've heard. I accepted it. I understood it. I can't really give it to you in its full light, but this is my interpretation of it. Taurus is that bull energy. It is authority. It's authoritarian. Now, over the last few years, with things like the Black Lives Matter movement and police being made accountable for violence and force that has gone way beyond what should ever been allowed. Because why? We have been conditioned as a nation, as a society, that an authority is allowed to beat you, is allowed to manipulate you and get away with it, and you are supposed to be the little person, just like the pain and healing I've just explained about who I was. Well, and finally we're standing up and saying that isn't right. It isn't about black, white, although that is how the government's perceived it. This is a nation of right or wrong, and the human race is the only race. The only race. And the government has tried to create little battles between all of us. So when we are fighting against each other, whether it's one gang against another, the blacks against the whites, against the Asians, against the Chinese, whatever these wars they've all created from Germany, from the beginning, all these world wars that the government started, and then us as people had to fight those battles. We are now understanding that they was the toxic assholes that instigated fights between differences to create and keep them apart. Because if we all united and stood one against the government, against the oppressors, we would be a force of reckoning and change. Now, we couldn't do that with the Black Lives Matter because there's so many generations that have been hurt and abused by one systemic government against another one, between the slaveries and all the rest of it, the apartheids, all of that has been too ingrained within us. When you let the generational cycles and the pain of your predecessors go and see it for what it is, we can grand uprise. This is why COVID is really fucking important. Really important. Why? Because as a nation, we don't want our rights suppressed. This isn't about colour. COVID isn't about colour. COVID isn't about race. It isn't about how much money you've got. It's about the government controlling where you can go, where you can't go, while they will have parties in Parliament, why they do not have to wear their masks. Does COVID not hit people who are in Parliament? Does COVID not hit people who have got money? But yet those who have almost nothing to live on are having every bit of our freedom snatched away, even to the point where certain people are mandatory to give you an injection that I don't give a fuck what you think about the vaccine. Over 60 years ago, there was a pill that was given to people and it was prescribed and it was confirmed from the FDSA, or whatever the fucking company's called, the governing body that rules drugs. It was a drug to help pregnant women in pregnancy cope with having morning sickness. It was the formaldehyde. Do you know they made billions? And people kept saying there's a connection to why children are born with arms and legs missing, deformations, to this drug. But their government made that much money in taxes and revenue and all the rest of it on it. They didn't want to see it because they was watching the dollar signs. And it took nearly 20 or 30 years for them to finally understand the connection between what was happening with these poor children and their mothers and their families to that drug. This is the reason why I will not accept a vaccine that was made in a few months. If this is so worldwide and so catastrophic and such a pandemic, how the hell can you tell me that you know how to fix it? When we've had cancers out here for years with herbal medications that can fix it, but because you couldn't tax something that was grown, you didn't want to accept that it was a fixer, that it was a healer. People with PTSD can be treated with MDMA and psychotics. They have the evidence to prove it. But at the very last minute when the trials were working, they realised they couldn't govern that either. So that got stopped. What did they do? Make a tablet version. Why? Because they can tax that. They added extra chemicals. The government has always created this. The same with the drug addiction issue. Where did it start? Veterans came back from the First World War with limbs missing. The government knew that the opioid stopped and blocked the nervous system to you to feel pain. These soldiers was then addicted to these drugs because they were so high velocity and strength, because heroin was the main ingredient of these drugs. The government then decided we're wasting too much money giving the veterans who earned our country the freedom they have today. So we're going to stop it. We're going to stop it cut dead. Those people are addicted. So then street pharmacists decided we have to help our people. But then, as in all, greed sets in. And the heroin wasn't pure anymore. And it was dirty. And the government watched it happen. And now the government will make you believe that you're the issue because you have a drug addiction that they created. All of this right now is coming apparent. All of those big institutions that was run by that Taurus energy that's now changed to the Aquarian energy of logic, intuition, following that path. All of a sudden, police officers for the first time in history have been sent down, one after the other. Governments are being called out. People are ratting and being the whistleblower to generations that they've never ever been before, because people are finally having logic and standing up for their own rights, because things don't make sense, and when they don't make sense it's because it isn't true. The truth doesn't have to have a story behind it. The truth is the truth. So while we are retaining our power in the connection, which is why there's a grand rising and everybody's realising, with it starting with the twin flame, the person you're with, the fact that you are your best guide, you have that intuition. Those same intuitions are kicking in worldwide, on all levels, everywhere. So while the government is putting these out, the government has also been in collusions with what we class as royalty over here. The royalty that's connected to this Epstein case, where these men have been abusing children for years, but because they're royalty and they have money, they've hidden it. But what is done in the dark is coming to light. And this is the Grand Rising. All these times when the mask was introduced, that was the day that they was going to go into the Vatican, and they locked everywhere down. Because truths are hidden in there, protected by the government. There's truths hidden in political parties all around the world that are now finally coming out. We have to stand up as a collective together, united in the healing of souls, not in colour, not in money. It all, everything. The awakening is happening. And you have to heal the generations and forgive them for the mistakes that they made because they did not know better, because the leaders didn't know how to lead. But you see, the universe has given you the inspiration and a better leadership skills because you have coming from something that they could never have, which is heart, soul. You're connected to the divine, they're connected to greed and power. And anybody that has greed or power and uses it to manipulate and control, whether it's a reader, whether it's your twin flame, whether it's all of these systems that have been put into place of these generational cycles of belief systems that we've had, it is all falling apart. This is the start of the Grand Rising. And 2022, when you add the numbers, is 6, because balance and justice with those scales is going to be restored. It's time. Healing heals the world in a different way. Saving one soul at a time is what we're here for. This is how I see my journey. I see where my place is in this world. Because you see, the lion was put upon my neck to give me strength from the cards before I knew what it was. The healing that I was able to give myself when I didn't even know what healing was. We are all in this element of wanting to step out, ripping off the avatar, unzipping it and letting our true inner self out. If we're judged, if we're cast upon, I couldn't give 2 flying fucks. I've been judged since I was a child. What are you going to do? What can you do? When the whole world stands up together, we're a collective of masses. This is how healing works. And it all starts from that little child who didn't get listened to. That child that was abused. That child that grew into a teenager. It all started with the generation that we're in. And we have been put here to feel a pain, to have to go through the battles. Because you know now, if we hadn't have been through those, we wouldn't have the understanding, the overstanding to see what's really going on in all connections. It is going to be a worldwide. This is immense. And there is no coincidences, and I've felt the need to come out many a times, but I didn't know how to. It's very personal, it's very vulnerable, and people have trolls. I don't have one moderator on mine. Do you know why? Because my truth, if it triggers you enough for you to have to shout at me and put your bullshit comments up, you're the only one that's walking away here with a low vibrating energy, because your comments can't get to me. Your abuse can't get to me. The people who was around me, raised me, lived me, born me, loved me, their words couldn't get to me either. So I don't have moderators. If I knew how to do it, maybe I would. But have I ever been bothered? Never. I don't need to. When you get to that acceptance in who you are, there's nothing anybody can say that will knock you down. This is the power of healing that I want to share. That every single one of you has within you. You have the ability to change the next generation. Every generation says the next generation's getting worse. Look at this generation. They're so lippy. I've raised my children to be lippy. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Do you know why? Because nobody will ever condition them. They will have their voice. And I couldn't speak when I was a child because children shouldn't be spoken about. Children should be seen and not heard. Oh no. You will hear my children. They are confident. And they will argue their case to the point where my 9-year-old who's autistic gets treated like shit at school. And he will tell his truth in front of all the teachers, and I will stand behind that boy and back him every step of the way, and I will rip them teachers down. They might call him impertinent. They might call him rude. No, it's triggering you, darling, because it's the truth and you don't know how to deal with it. How can a 9-year-old be so awake to his own understanding, his own feelings? How? Why? An audacity? What kind of mother are you? The best kind. Because my children are allowed to be who they are. They're not going to be put in boxes. I made that mistake with the elder ones because I was conditioned. My children aren't conditioned. They're free spirits. That box that you want to put them in, not a fucking chance. My children was born as mighty oak trees that built their own roots into the ground, and they will grow and bloom in any which damn way that they wish to. And if their feathers rattle you, move along. This is what we need to do for each one of us. You have to feed your soul. 1, 1, 1, 1. That's my journey, and this is why I'm here. Let's get some of the comments going. I haven't been able to read any because I've just kind of been in a flow. Is this kind of understanding and reading for me to explain why healing is so important any good? Or am I just kind of blowing off and using you as a healing mechanism for me to be able to get out my shadow side? I love you too, Shirley. Yep, do what you've got to do. If that is what you want to do, then I'm not against the marijuana movement. And the reason that the government have not legalized it is because it does make people seek consciousness. It does make them relaxed, and it stops the anxiety that they be able to pay for those pills and tablets and the sertraline and all the rest of it that keep you locked down and not face your crap that you've got going on, because medicine, all it does is suppress the issues you've got going on. I love you too, Cindy. Vulnerable was something I could never do. Being vulnerable is a sign of strength, because it means you're willing to open up and allow people to come inside of you. But I don't feel as though people can take anything from me when I open up, because there's a story that I'm willing to tell. I went down that road. I used drugs hard for about 3 years, which is why it mentally fucks you up. But I was also being drugged by the doctors. So I used one to counteract the other one, because the doctor's pills made me a zombie. But the cocaine kept me awake. And the marijuana stopped the noises in my head. Those noises were voices, the voices of my soul. And when I stopped all the drugs, the noises got very loud until I understood they weren't noises. It was my intuition. It was the spirits talking through me. I could hear voices of people that had dead past. I'm happy. Have I done good there, Cindy? Ola, I love you, darling. So this is my truth. So if you want some healing, believe me, it can really, really help. And if you don't do it for you, do it for your children. Do it for your children. The blessings of your mother will shadow through your daughter. And we are all connected. The day your mother was born, she had her ovaries. And you felt the trauma of that pain within her ovaries. And her daughter was in the same pain and cycle. And then the pain that you went through as a child, you carried in your ovaries. And you put down and you bled into your children. So by healing, you healed generations that you will never even meet. Yeah, that's what I mean, Cindy. We're blinded by it, and we try and numb the pain because we don't know how to speak out. Especially when you're born in cycles or generations or within communities that are so strict and, have conditions on everything. Conditions shouldn't come with anything. Conditions shouldn't come with anything. Things that have conditions are suppressants. There shouldn't be a side effect to a tablet because you shouldn't take them. There shouldn't be a side effect to speaking your truth. You should just be allowed to say it. There shouldn't be a side effect of making a mistake because you're not going to go to hell, my darling. Hell is what we live here on earth, in the cycles and the abuse and the shame that we carry. Healing is free. And we heal ourselves, exactly. And by healing ourselves, we heal everybody else. It's the way it works. Healing is universal. It's like somebody imagine we're all walking around in the dark. One person heals, they are a light. All of a sudden, those people who are not scared of the light turn. Start noticing this light. She's a bit crazy. Look at her walking around with a light on her head. After a while, you realise being around that person shines something on yourself that feels very warm. So that pulls somebody else in. Until you carry that light. Because then all of a sudden, you don't care whether it's right, wrong, people look at you crazy. I want to live under that light because I'm sick of living under the darkness. And you pass that torch on to the next one. And before you know it, that dark place, that dark city, all of a sudden has people walking around with light, offering and guiding it to people that want to take the light and walk around and pass it to their cycle. Till eventually, all this light is passed around everybody. No, I wouldn't. That night in my darkness, Cindy was the light. The voice resonated. The words were so powerful. And it changed the course of what happened in my life. I was unaware of what was really going on. But all I knew was that day I had a purpose. And I only found out realistically, I knew my cards helped heal. I've done many readings. I do many over here. I help people with abuse and with rape and with suicide. That's what I do outside of YouTube. That's what I do to people. I give them my understanding of healing. I use my cards and it helps them see their shadow side. I haven't even got to the shadow cards, but I think I'll do that for another day because by opening up, I think I've kind of drained myself, so I'm quite happy to just sit here talk. So I hope nobody's disappointed that I haven't pulled the cards out. See, I didn't even understand what she was saying. It was more of the metaphors that I was getting from the reading that resonated to me. It just hit home. And sometimes all it takes is that one conversation, the passion that you've never heard from somebody else that's giving you the strength. Like the other day, that reading, I'm overwhelmed by the support that reading got given. Like... And just that validation that my pain wasn't for nothing inspired me to really open up and help other people and hope this helps other people. I really do hope it helps. Like I say, I was guilty of being a bad parent because I learnt it from somebody who'd learnt it from somebody else. I hold no blame to those people. At all, on any level. I love my mum and it took me a long time to be able to say that. I respect the woman she is. And my heart bleeds for the pain that she had to go through because I know what I went through. And nobody should have to go through that. And the same pain my grandma had to go through. She was born in the 30s, you know, when nobody had a voice but men. The suppression is real. The deprivation is real. And to have that acceptance, and now me and my mum have a beautiful relationship. She's not in my pocket. I can call at any time. If I want something, she will help me, and I'm not scared to ask. I need some guidance. I need some advice. On anything realistically. I need some affection. I need help with money. I need help with pain. I'm stressed out. I'm going to lose it. Whatever. Because my mum came back into my life when I was mentally completely broken, and if it wasn't for her, she had to fill out forms for me because I wasn't able to speak for myself. I had a complete stammer because when my anxiety kicks in, I didn't even believe in my own words, and the stutter, the stammering. I was 8 stone nothing. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep. My mum used to come and take me away at the weekend and take me to her house. that healing and that love made up for everything that I didn't get as a child, because I accepted where she'd come from because I'd been there. And that's the power of healing. It's a beautiful energy. Thank you, Honeybee. Yeah, we do. And I'd stand by my mum now. I would back her up every step of the way. And I haven't been able to honestly say that for lots and lots of years. We all make mistakes, exactly. But making mistakes is okay. Because if we didn't make mistakes, how would we ever know when we've done it right if we hadn't done it wrong? You know the feeling when you've done something right. And if you hadn't had all these bad relationships now healed, when a good relationship comes in, are you going to recognise it? Of course you are. Are you going to see the signs of the bad one and go, get out? Yeah. This is why healing's so important. It not only heals the brokenness, it allows you to see what you really are worth. And that for me is more than enough. She's here. Hiya, Ray. Have you been here the whole reading? My beautiful daughter. It is. Exactly. I don't even call them mistakes anymore. We have blessings, and if it's not a blessing, then it was a lesson, and every lesson is needed. You're never going to learn to cook unless you get the lessons, are you? You have to make a few brown cakes, burnt, crispy, hard ones that don't taste very good until you get to the point where you can. And that's where we are. Healing. And my beautiful daughter, Ray, in the comments here. My little warrior princess. This is the time of healing and the grand rising where parents and children can reunite, Cindy, and with everything in me, I hope to God that your daughter feels the power that you've been putting out there, because the only thing that's missing out of your life was the very thing that you gave me. And it's going to get paid back. It will come back. You deserve it. You work selflessly to help others all the time with passion. We all deserve that healing. She deserves that healing because the lies that she's been told will come to the surface. The same way the lies we was told will come to the surface. There's no stopping this energy now. It's here to stay. I love you, Cindy. Well, I'm going to leave it there and say good night, and I will come back tomorrow, I promise. And even if it's not a live, I will do a shadow card reading, but it just kind of went away talking about the inner child. But that's the basic to you starting. So if you don't know how to detach, start going back in within from your childhood. Start looking at why you felt unvalidated, why you stayed in cycles, whether it was physical abuse, mental abuse, or addiction, and allowed it to happen. Exactly, Ray. The spiritual journey saved us, and it's the best decision we ever made. Thank you. I wear my crown proudly, but I'll happily share my crown with anybody that needs that pick-me-up. Thank you very much. Thank you. I love you all. I'm going to say namaste. Good night. Good blessings. And thank you so much for 30 of you for turning up here. I'm really appreciative. If one or two people can resonate and understand where they have to go next, just because it connects with what I've said from my childhood to how or why they picked up this horrible connection that wasn't really horrible, then I've done my work for today. Thank you all. And I'm going to go, if I can try and cut off. I don't know how to cut off on this thing. Oh, I'm stiff as a board now. Oh, good night, my darling. England says good night. And I hope you have a great night. I'll message you soon, Cindy. Love you all. Bye.